What is going on, YouTube? ModzvilleUSA here, back with another video. And today we're gonna do something kind of neat. Been looking forward to a little project here. We are going to be turning this crappy old GBA into an HDMI outputting console. Now what I'm using here is a new project called GBAHD Shield, or just GBAHD. Essentially what's going on here is I ordered this from a company that makes the kits, but if you wanted to, you can get the PCB, download get the bill of materials, put everything together from scratch, and then you also need this this shield here. Now I've done all the setup here off screen. Like flash the firmware to this guy, install the pin headers, all of that. Now if you want more deets on that, I highly recommend go ahead and check out Dubesinhower's video on GBAHD. He did the SP version, but he goes over all of that, building it from scratch, flashing the firmware, the whole 9 yards. So I'm not going to go through all of that. Go check out his video, very, very well done. And yeah, if you're building an old GBA, I guess come on back and follow along here after getting everything set up. So I purchased it here from retroupgrades.co.uk, the GBA Shield portion, but they're out of stock. I think they've been out of stock. They've only done like one run, but keep an eye on it, and I'll have everything else linked below as well. And as far as the shell, I went ahead and 3D printed it myself. There's a few more pieces, but I'm just keeping the main one here for now. And then we got a couple more doodads for the kit. Got some FCC connectors, etc. So this is going to be from just pretty much putting everything together. Firmware's flashed, everything's set up on this end, and we're just going to build this bad boy. So you want to make sure you got a working GBA, hearing it boot, etc. This one's got a pretty funky screen, as well as I believe a goofy power switch. Yeah, goofy power switch. When I looked at the board, it was pretty damn clean. So this is a good candidate here. Yeah, so cool. We get down to the main board here. Okay, so the first thing we gotta do is remove this crystal oscillator. Let's get a tighter shot of that. Okay, very nice. Now, I'm sure there's a couple ways to go about it. I'm gonna go the old hot air station route. Adding a bit of flux works better for me. Typically when I do any kind of hot air work like this, I like to add solder and flux, but introducing new solder is typically nice. Seems pretty good. Okay, tweezers acquired. I'm gonna go in here, 350 Celsius, 7.5 airflow. You're really gonna want to watch the little resistors and capacitors here. See if I can keep my tweezers here without it getting too hot. Alright, it's a budging. Very nice. Beautiful. Okay, next thing we gotta do is remove the power switch. So I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna tin this fucker up. Here, let's see if we can do this with an iron first. Get underneath this. I know this guy comes right up. Watch for solder splashes like that guy. Hey, that's hot. And if you're trying to fix a power switch, pretty much do what we just did. Come in here and clean these pads with some IPA. Battery corrosion can get in those and make it a bit of a mess. So I don't know if the switch is locked in here. I don't think it is. So I'm going to try to just do a swiping motion here. Get up all these pads. See if it budges. No. Don't think so. Okay. Yeah, it's locked in. So we can try our wick. But I think the simplest solution here is to come at it again with hot air. It's gonna melt the plastic. I don't really care about that much, but the concerning thing is these electrolytic caps. you put a lot of heat on those, they can just explode. I've had it happen. I don't recommend really removing these SMD electrolytics with hot air. Some people do, especially if they're crusty. They'll just pop. Like, yeah, they'll blow up before you. I don't know. I've had it happen. It's sus. I don't like it. Okay. It should protect those caps. If they blow, well, they'll blow. We'll have to replace them. All right. Okay, now that's off. What we're gonna do here is bridge these so the GBA is in an always on state. Very nice. Next up, I'm going to be bridging the 3 left pins here on the sound wheel, so it's just max volume all the time. Cool, dude. You can use wire, maybe make your life a little bit easier there, but we got it done. A few more things. We're just going to desolder the left and right triggers, as well as the speaker. I do gotta say, the hot air really discolors the PCB here, so you might want to do your best to avoid hot air on these. I had to do another one. I think that's what I'm gonna do, because this looks a little funky once you heat it up. Should be totally fine. It's just aesthetically less pleasing. So I'm gonna use my desoldering gun here. Once it heats up, get the speaker out of here, get these switches out. Cool, man. Pretty easy. If anyone needs one of these triggers here, give me a comment. I don't need them. Alright, now I'm gonna stick this bad boy to the CPU right here. Some double-sided tape. The picture, have it up top. I don't want to run into some weird clearance issues later. Cool. Got some fuzzies in here. Okay, so now we gotta wire up all these points here into this little board. So let's get a time lapse going. I don't want to bore you explaining every little wire. So yeah, we're going to bust this out. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I think we got him. She's all wired up. A little purple there bums me out, but it's gonna be alright. Everything's fine. Board's a little discolored. We're not gonna be looking at it. It's gonna be chilling in a case. So I think now is the time to hook up the connectors and hook it up to the shield. Hook it up to this bad boy. Get it all wired up. Before we put it in the shell, we're just gonna run it all naked and raw and see if it's working. So let's do that. One last thing I forgot, you need to solder in a 2.2K resistor between the ground and power battery terminal here. Boom. Easy peasy. We also need to set this jumper here. So there's 3 pads, 1, 2, and 3. For old 3DS, we bridge 1 and 2. And then if you were doing the SP, you would go 2 to 3 instead. So I got that bridged. Cool. Time to connect it all up. Something I'd like to mention here is that I don't know if had to is the best word to use, but I came in and I trimmed each one of these pins here from the pin headers. They stick up quite a bit and they were blocking off the FCC connector. You can still plug it in, but it was putting pressure on the cable. I didn't much care for that, so I trimmed these up and then I went through and reflowed the solder joints. And yeah, that's all there is to that. Alright, this is how it's all connected. This FCC connector goes to this one. Blue tab's facing you, facing up. Blue tab facing up here. This is 40 pin. And I believe if you've got the 32 pin, it goes here. And connector goes blue tab down on the GBA itself. Doesn't seem to want to focus, but I think you get it. Now it's just a matter of me powering it up, hooking it up via HDMI, seeing if we're good to go. Well, fuck yeah, we got it. Now it's just a matter of putting it in the shell, but we're also going to need to wire up a few things here. Just a few little things. We got the audio jack. There's gonna be 3 wires coming off of that. We've got power and reset, and they have LEDs, so we're gonna have to wire those up too. And yeah, I think that's about it. So on to the assembly process. Alright dudes, I got it all assembled in the case, and I'm just gonna go ahead and give you a rundown of a couple of things I noticed. You're likely gonna be, just follow the GitHub, the instructions for the OGBA case here on how to assemble it, but there might be a few things worth mentioning. So these buttons here, that's the reset, that's the power. I wired up the LEDs for these for both. So on the bottom of these power switches, you're going to see a plus and a minus. Those plus and minus is for the light on the buttons. So the plus wire up power. Power goes here, ground goes there, minus is ground. So yeah, if you want the LED switches, the plus and minus from both, power, ground, that's for those switches. This is the actual power switch itself. It's the other two legs. These don't need to be in a specific order here. Just you know, open or closing the circuit basically. And then the reset switch gets wired to the main board. That's all self-explanatory, or explain more in the guide as well. There's exactly where one is ground and one is a pad literally labeled reset. And yeah, for this guy here, it didn't fit in too great, like perfectly, so I lined it up with an SD card in here just to how I liked it, and I ended up hot gluing it at the front here and at the back here, a little dab just to lock it in because it wasn't kind of efficiently locking itself in. And that's pretty much it. Just getting it in here was a bitch. I had to sand things down a little bit. Oh yeah, that's definitely not it. The one thing that I don't believe, I might be wrong, it may be an oversight on my part, but I don't believe the instructions mention that this switch here from the main FPGA board needs to be desoldered and removed, otherwise it's going to clip when you're putting this thing in here. I didn't see anything about mentioning that it needs to be removed. It might be in there, I could be wrong, but all that matters is it needs to be removed. You need to desolder this switch, otherwise it's not gonna go into the case here. And that's about it. I'm gonna put the final touches on this bad boy, and then we're gonna go play around with this, some of the features and options. Boot her up, you know. So I'll see you when I'm done with that. Alright dudes, I've gone ahead and booted up my GBA HD. We're rocking Super Mario World here, and I've already got these settings configured. And in order to pull up the on-screen display, it's LR, select, and right. My D-pad's a little wonky, so I gotta go kind of like diagonal. So we got this pixel grid here. By default it'll be off, kind of like the dark pixel grid. Got some nice squares. Smoothing, that is to taste. I think it looks pretty weird. I like the nice chunky pixels, so I keep that off. Go dark there. And there's the color schemes. I like the GBA color scheme, and you can either rock 60 hertz or toggle it, and when you toggle it, it'll be 59.7. 60 is fine for me. When you're done in here, just push start, and we'll make a game here. Now, for whatever reason, I've been having issues with getting audio working on my Elgato setup. No matter what I'm using, it seems to just not be capturing audio. I don't know what's going on there. I gotta figure that out. But audio is for sure working on my TV. This seems to be like a global issue I'm having right now with my current setup. But yeah, everything feels super responsive. For some reason, Luigi in this version is like super floaty, kind of like Peach or something. Like it feels weird. Like Mario 2 physics on Luigi. Don't recommend it. Yoink. So yeah, that looks pretty good. Well, alright dudes, here I am in a controller testing software for the GBA, GBA, using the SNES controller. And I thought I was having an issue with my device. Here I'm pushing start, holding start. You see that? It's flickering. It's having that issue in any of the gameplay footage you probably would have saw. Yoshi constantly tonguing everything. Every button seems to flicker. I figured it had something to do with the device, but it turns out I'm just a big old tardy tard. It's this controller. So here I'm going to wire up another one. Plug in another SNES controller. I guess I just never used that controller before. And let's hold start. Yep, got a goofy controller. So that's a non-issue. Alright. There is one thing that is an issue. However, now as you can see, I've got the console is booted up. I'm going to go ahead and reset it, pushing the reset button on the back, and boom. Everything's gravy, everything's good, everything's golden, keeps resetting. But now if I turn it off, turn it back on, there's a failure rate where it just doesn't boot sometimes. Now I guess this is regular for the GBA Consolizer too. And I popped in the the Discord, talking to ManCloud and those guys, seeing trying to get a technical explanation as to why this is a thing, why these fail to boot sometimes. And here, let me relay that to you real quick. Alright, so this is the response I got from ManCloud himself. Disregard the first question, that was about the controller cutting out, but I am an idiot and I just had a bad controller the whole time. But for number two, being why the GBA doesn't boot up properly every single time, I'll just go ahead and read it aloud. The GBA system is kinda picky when it comes to energy management. The SP even worse than the OGBA. The devs of the GBA added a decharging resistor to the system, which will actively discharge the residual capacity every time the system is shut down. If this is not done properly, the energy monitor and supply chip will flag the supply as bad and not deliver any voltages. We kind of tried to solve this problem in the new Shield revision by adding additional MOSFET and discharging resistors to the supply chain, and are currently experiencing good results. This is also why we said that one needs to add a 2.2K resistor, as we did earlier in the video, in parallel to the supply pins, but maybe this value is not always suitable. Additionally, sometimes the CPU gets stuck by voltages that shouldn't be there. This means the Shield actively switches the power supply of the GBA, but the Shield has no way of switching the clock signal for the GBA, at least not in the older versions. Current revision has this capability, as the clock signal has a 3.3 volt level that leads to the fact that the CPU is kind of supplied by this and locks up. This doesn't happen always, but we experienced that it was quite frequently in the past. We got around that sometimes by different booting scenarios or by additional resistors in the clock line, but ended up with a transistor automatically switching the clock signal off when the GBA power supply is switched off as well. So yeah, very detailed reasoning there. So let's do a couple quick boot ups and reboots. Let's see how it goes. So, like I said before, you hit reset, it's good. Once it's booted, it's not a problem. If it's on, it's on. So we're going to turn it off. Bop. For like 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. And something I've noticed is if it's not booting, turning it off for a couple seconds seems to be helpful. So right now it's doing a very good job. We'll talk to Dubesinhower about his. He's got the SP build, so it's still going. And I guess the results with his are more like it boots up like 40% of the time. So if you do an SP build, I guess expect it to be significantly less reliable than the one I'm currently working with here. So we're doing quite well. It's consistently booting up. Maybe I can get one failure to boot on here, but certainly seems to be solid. And to keep in mind, you gotta have that SD card inserted. If it's not booting up at all, ever, that could be a problem. Yeah, this is working really solid. It's been it's been about a week since any of the other footage you've seen, and I was running into way more issues with it not booting up. Now it's booting quite solidly. Yeah, I can't even get footage of it not booting, so that is a very neat sign. So all in all, this device is awesome. This project is fucking awesome. The GBA Consolizer has always been quite cool, but seeing an open source and like anyone can make these totally open to the public. You don't need to wait for a kit to become available and sold to you. You can get all the parts yourself, put it together. Very beautiful thing. This is hell of a project, and I'd highly recommend trying this out if this looks like a fun project to you. I really like the build. I like that the bill of materials suggests these very cool LED lit up switches and reset switches. It's very neat. Let me see. Unfortunately, my AC adapter is not very long, but yeah, it's got that dope orange light. I got orange to fit with my spooky Halloween theme here, and that's reset button lit up as well. I think that's very rad. One of the main issues I ran into is the shell itself. I don't think mine printed weird, but yeah, it did not clip into place. It just, the edges kept popping up. I mean, it fit, it's just wasn't like the perfect like clamp snap-in solution you might be hoping for. I had to do a lot of gluing. Even then, it kind of like still, you know, there's edges that keep coming up. If I use like crazy glue to keep this shit down, it doesn't look that great. I might go in and reprint and redo all this at some point, but most of my issues were on the bottom, and when this is sitting down, it's not something that's really noticeable, but you know, this is for my own usage. I wouldn't feel good about selling something like this. So yeah, maybe the shell itself could use a bit of redesign. I'd like to see something with that's screwed down. Maybe something with screw holes that isn't relying on like a clamshell kind of a deal. I think that would be much better. Because I had issues. I definitely had issues with this like popping out. But other than that, it's very clean. I would just go for a a screwed down solution as opposed to snapping in place, because it didn't work out in my experience snapping this bad boy in place. But yeah, this is rad. Is it the best option for playing GBA on legit hardware on HD TV? I would say no. My main go-to is still going to be my GameCube with GB player running GBI, and I've got mine modded with GC Video. Is that the name of it? Or GC Dual, the internal HDMI / analog mod, and I'm running analog out via, what am I using? Component or RGB? Yeah, Wii Component. You can use Wii Component cables with it, so you don't need to pay for the exorbitantly priced GameCube component. Very rad mod. Highly recommend that for a daily driver. You use a GameCube, but all in one with a SNES controller. This is a rad alternative to that. And yeah, the only real issues is sometimes it might not boot up right away, but once you have it on, you're gaming. Unless you shut it down, you might have an issue booting it back up. But just hitting reset and having a flash cart like this, you are good to go. So this is a cute little device. I like it. I'm a fan. Go support the project. Build one of these if it looks like a fun project that's not out of your league. And yeah, very, very fucking rad. Highly recommend. Go show the boys some love. I'll leave the Discord down below, where you can go chat it up. Tell them I sent you. Send my love. And yeah, thanks for watching, dudes. Modzville signing out.